There are 5 types of people at every closing table. One has a spreadsheet for everything. One fell in love in 30 seconds. One almost walked away over a doorknob. One felt the house before they saw it. And one almost talked themselves out of the best decision of their life. Which one are you? 1. The balanced brain. Do you arrive 5 minutes early to every appointment and have a spreadsheet for your budget? If yes, you might have the balanced brain. And in real estate, that is a superpower with one blind spot. According to Dr. Amen's research at Amen Clinics, the balanced brain type shows full, even symmetrical blood flow throughout the brain. Think of it as an engine that always runs at the perfect temperature. Dr. Amen describes people with this brain type as focused, flexible, emotionally stable, and highly conscientious. They show up on time. They follow through on what they say they will do. They cope well with uncertainty and tend to make decisions based on a combination of research and common sense. In real estate, that sounds like this. I have done my research. I know my budget. I have a list of must-haves and deal breakers. I am ready to make a decision when the right property comes along. That is the buyer every agent dreams of, and they exist. They are just not as common as we would like. The challenge in real estate, the balanced brain can sometimes be too measured. It can underestimate the emotional dimensions of a real estate decision and be caught off guard when those emotions arrive anyway. And in a fast-moving, competitive market, the balanced brain's preference for thorough evaluation can cost them the property. While they are running the numbers one more time, someone else is signing the offer, the superpower in real estate. The balanced brain makes decisions it can live with. It does not panic in a bidding war. It does not overbid out of fear. It does not underestimate the costs of ownership. It is the brain type most likely to close without drama and most likely to be happy with the decision 5 years later. 2 very different conversations are happening. One about a transaction, one about a life well planned. Only one is what this brain type actually came for. 2. The spontaneous brain. Have you ever walked into a property, felt it in your gut before you even reached the kitchen, and said, "This is the one," and then 3 weeks later found yourself equally certain about a completely different house? If that sounds familiar, you might have the spontaneous brain. And if you are a real estate agent listening to this and nodding your head right now, you are not alone. Dr. Amen's research shows that the spontaneous brain type has lower than average activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning, forethought, impulse control, and decision-making. Dr. Amen describes this brain type as creative, adventurous, and novelty-seeking. They love trying new things, think outside the box, and would rather act on instinct than follow a plan. And here's the detail that stopped us when we first read it. Dr. Amen specifically notes that this brain type is particularly common among entrepreneurs, entertainers, politicians, and real estate agents. In real estate, that sounds like this. I walked in, and I knew. I do not need to see anything else. This is the one. When can we make an offer? And then, Week 1. Pure fire. Week 3. Radio silence. A new property. A completely different direction. The same certainty, the same energy. That is not unreliability. That is a brain whose reward system fires intensely at novelty and then moves on once the novelty fades. Unlike the balanced brain, which evaluates before it feels, the spontaneous brain feels before it evaluates. Neither is wrong, but they will never agree on a timeline. The challenge in real estate, impulse control, is genuinely difficult for this brain type. Deadlines get missed, paperwork gets ignored, the excitement of finding the property can completely overshadow the work of closing on it. And the decision made in a moment of peak enthusiasm can feel entirely different 30 days later. If you are an agent and you recognize yourself here, breathe. Your creativity is your engine. Your biggest challenge is the paperwork on day 25. The superpower in real estate. The spontaneous brain moves fast when the market demands it. It sees potential in spaces others have already dismissed. It negotiates with energy and confidence. And when it commits fully, there is no more enthusiastic buyer in the room. 2 very different conversations are happening. One about a buyer who is hard to pin down and harder to close. One about a brain that needs structure around its enthusiasm to turn excitement into keys in hand. Only one gets them home. 3. The persistent brain. Have you ever passed on 10 perfectly good properties because none of them had exactly the right kitchen? Or watched an entire deal collapse over a minor inspection repair because it felt like a matter of principle? If that sounds familiar, you might have the persistent brain. According to Dr. Amen, the persistent brain type shows increased activity in the anterior cingulate gyrus. Think of it as a switch that gets stuck in the on position. Once this brain locks onto an idea, it has genuine physical difficulty changing the channel. Dr. Amen describes this brain type as driven, determined, and highly focused, but also prone to getting stuck on thoughts, holding strong opinions, and having difficulty letting go of a position once it is formed. They like routine, they like being in charge, and they do not respond well to being told no. In real estate, that sounds like this. I know exactly what I want. I have a very specific list, and I am not interested in alternatives. I want what I want, and if the seller does not accept my offer as written, I am prepared to walk away entirely. That is not stubbornness for its own sake. That is a brain whose switch got stuck on a target and makes compromise feel genuinely threatening. The challenge in real estate. The persistent brain can be its own worst enemy in a negotiation. It turns counteroffers into battles of will. It passes on 10 good properties waiting for the perfect one that may never exist. And if it is selling, it often overvalues the property because letting go of a number feels like losing. A minor inspection repair request can derail an entire transaction simply because this brain type reads it as a challenge to its position. If you are negotiating with a persistent brain, do not try to win the battle of will. Give them options where they feel they are maintaining control. That is not manipulation. That is speaking their language. The superpower in real estate. When the persistent brain decides it wants something, nothing stops it. It does not second guess. It does not back down under pressure. It follows through with a determination that most buyers simply lack. And in a competitive market, that tenacity wins. Two very different conversations are happening. One about a buyer or seller who is impossible to work with and refuses to bend. One about a brain that simply needs its position to be respected before it can move forward. Only one closes the deal. 4. The sensitive brain. Have you ever walked into a property and felt something was off before you even reached the second room? Not a specific problem you could name, just a feeling. Or walked into a house and felt immediately at home before you saw a single room properly. If that sounds familiar, you might have the sensitive brain. And that feeling is not imagination. It is data. Dr. Amen's research shows that the sensitive brain type exhibits increased activity in the limbic system. Think of it as a satellite dish for emotions. While others see walls and square footage, this brain is picking up the signal of everything that has happened between them. Dr. Amen describes this brain type as deeply empathetic, highly attuned to others' feelings, and prone to experiencing emotions more intensely than average. They feel things deeply. They sense the energy of a room. They pick up on what is not being said as much as what is, and they tend to see the glass half empty when stress is high. In real estate, that sounds like this. I walked in and something just felt off. I cannot explain it, but I could feel that this house has not been happy. Or the opposite. I walked in and I felt at home immediately. Something about this space feels like it was waiting for us. That is not sentimentality. That is a satellite dish receiving information at a frequency most people simply do not register. The challenge in real estate. The sensitive brain can be deeply affected by other people's emotions in the transaction. An anxious agent, a frustrated seller, an uncertain partner, all of it lands with full force. And when stress is high, a small crack in the wall is not a maintenance issue. It is a sign that the entire deal is about to fall apart. That fear feels completely real, even when the actual risk is minor. If you are an agent working with a sensitive brain client, your job is to be their emotional shield. If you are stressed, they will multiply that stress by 10. Your calm is not just professional. It is the transaction, the superpower in real estate. The sensitive brain knows when something is wrong before the inspection report confirms it. It walks into a property and immediately senses whether the neighborhood is right, whether the sellers are hiding something, and whether this is a place where a life could genuinely flourish. That instinct is not imagination. It is data. Two very different conversations are happening. One about a buyer who is too emotional to make a rational decision. One about a brain that is receiving real information through a channel most people do not even know exists. Only one knows how to use it. 5. The cautious brain. Have you ever been completely ready to move forward on a property and then found yourself at 3 in the morning running through every possible thing that could go wrong? What if the inspection misses something? What if the market shifts? What if this is the biggest mistake we have ever made? What if? What if? What if? If that spiral sounds familiar, you might have the cautious brain. According to Dr. Amen, the cautious brain type shows heightened activity in the amygdala, the insular cortex, and the basal ganglia. Think of it as a highly sensitive security system, one that never fully turns off. Dr. Amen describes this brain type as prepared, motivated, conscientious, and reliable, but also prone to worry, busy-mindedness, and difficulty relaxing even when there is nothing wrong. They tend to expect the worst, and they tend to be the most prepared person in the room because of it. In real estate, that sounds like this. I have done the research, I know the market, I know the numbers, but what if something goes wrong? What if the inspection finds something the inspector missed? What if we stretch too far and then the market shifts? What if this is the biggest mistake we have ever made? That is not irrational fear. That is a security system working at a volume others simply cannot hear. The challenge in real estate. The cautious brain can talk itself out of a good decision. Every new piece of information generates a new worst-case scenario, and the closer it gets to closing, the louder the what-ifs become. The risk is not that it makes bad decisions. The risk is that it does not decide at all. The superpower in real estate. The cautious brain prepares for everything. It reads every document. It asks every question before it becomes a problem. It has the emergency fund, the inspection contingency, and the exit strategy already mapped before the offer is even written. It is never the buyer who gets surprised at closing. Two very different conversations are happening. One about a buyer who cannot stop worrying and cannot commit. One about a brain that needs to feel genuinely safe before it can say yes, and that will honor the commitment completely once it does. Only one understands what it actually needs. Which brain type showed up at your last closing table? The one who had a spreadsheet for everything? The one who fell in love in the first 30 seconds? The one who almost walked away over a doorknob? The one who felt the house before they saw it? Or the one who almost talked themselves out of the best decision of their life? Which one are you? Leave your number in the comments or the whole story. Either way, I want to hear it. Psychology Simplified. Real Estate Demystified.